Hello and welcome, listeners, to That's a Good Card. We are thrilled to be joined by who I think is the GOAT of CEDH, comedian Ian. Thank you so much for joining us, Ian. Welcome to the podcast. And we're just excited to have you on here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Very excited to talk about cards that may or may not be good.
Yeah, we will see. Now, the card that you sent over, I think, is pretty spicy. I
Yeah.
have seen it played a couple of times, and the second that you threw it out at us, I was like,
Mhm.
this is going to be an interesting conversation here.
Hell
So,
yeah.
so we've just decided to have Yaw go against and be the devil's advocate for this card, and I'm going to be helping you out with a couple of, fringe points, but I'm sure that you're going to be able to vie for this card quite well. So, without further ado, Ian, would you like to bring the card to the table for us?
So the card I'm presenting to you today, Sharks, is Displacement Wave. For X in blue blue, it's a sorcery, and it says return all non-land permanents with mana value X or less to their owner's hand.
Flavor text reads, "The sea respects no boundaries, least of all the coast."
Yeah, which is like super not cool of the sea. I feel like the sea should maybe take a lesson on consent.
Really not cool of the ocean. But
Yeah.
anyway, where are you playing this card? Kind of what's your just in summary initial thoughts, where you're playing it? Why did you decide to bring it too? Does this have some special place in your heart?
Oh yeah. So Displacement Wave has been a card that I have been advocating for. And I'm definitely one to bring fringes to the format quite often, right? Like I very much claim Colossal Sky Turtle as like a card that I'm responsible for. I like
Yeah.
brought Kinnan communities in, I brought Sisei on it. Like, there are definitely cards in this format that I've fought for really hard. And Displacement Wave has been one that I've been fighting for years that people have been so slow to move on. And it's so tilting for me. Basically, there was this relationship back when we had Dockside, Mana Crypt, Jeweled Lotus, etc., right?
Mhm.
Where there are these decks that everyone was like, well, this is a deck that will never have 7 mana. So you'll never be able to play Cyclonic Rift, right?
Mhm.
And people's solutions at the times were things like Rushing River, or just, later on down the line playing a second copy of a bounce spell like Into the Floodmouth. For those who haven't heard of Rushing River, that's 3 and a blue. So you can bounce a permanent and then sack a land to bounce another one. And they were like, no, 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 this is the best double Cyclonic Rift we have, Turbo, right? And I was like, Displacement Wave is right there, y'all.
Well, I like hearing the lore behind the
Yeah.
displacement wave. So what decks like have you played displacement wave in? Do you think that people today should consider this card in?
Yeah, I mean, I think the places where it's like S tier are going to be decks like Vivi, Joyra, right? Decks that really
Hmm.
care about spellcast, especially artifact spellcast. I think like Golbez is maybe another one too, right? Because, even if you don't use it for the disruptive mode in those decks, right?
Hmm.
That is a place where you can X equals 0, pick up all your rocks, and then play them again, right?
Mm.
That is the like kind of floor on the card. But realistically, what I see most often with that card is you'll launch something like X equals 2 into it, right? You'll pick up your soul rings, you'll pick up your mana vaults, maybe
Hmm.
2 or 3 Mystic Remoras around the table, right? Maybe 2 or 3 is dramatic, right? But
Yeah.
like at
Okay.
least a
Yeah.
Mystic Remora,
Yeah.
a stacks piece that's stopping you like a Graph Diggers or a Drannith Magistrate or just some annoying creature that's doing something stupid whenever you try and play the game of Magic, right? You'll just say, "Hey everybody, let's just pick those all up." And oh, by the way, I floated all of my mana from all of my artifacts before I did that. And oh, that's so weird. Now I'm actually playing a few free rocks, and I've done that a couple times. And oh, I have all my mana back. That's so weird. But where's all your stuff, guys?
Okay. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And just for the listeners at home, since it's a newer
Yeah,
card, I'm gonna go ahead and read Golbez just because we
yeah.
mentioned it. So it's Golbez Crystal Collector. It's a blue and a black for legendary creature, human wizard. It's a 1/4. It reads whenever an artifact you control enters, surveil one. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 4 or more artifacts, return target creature card from your
Mm.
graveyard to your hand. Then, if you control 8 or more artifacts, each opponent loses life equal to that card's power. So I
Hmm.
actually have seen this in my local meta. Connor, the Zuladoc pilot, the
Oh yeah.
legend himself, has built this and is just playing it as his like secondary for fun deck when he doesn't
Yeah.
when he wants to play blue, you know.
Yeah.
And so I think that this deck is pretty dope, and it does
Mhm.
have a ton of artifact synergies. So it's cool to hear that deck be mentioned,
Mhm.
as well as the other ones that you mentioned. Yeah. why don't you bring us into the places that we've seen this card be played in tournament lists?
We filter for 64 plus players in a tournament, we see this in about 29 decks over the last 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And in that time period, it has made 8 top cuts. It doesn't have a win. No deck, including this, has made a win, except if you go back down to 32 plus players, then it's actually seen 4 wins. So
Ooh.
people are definitely, able to what Ian was saying, jam a game through, right?
I am at least one of those, I will be honest.
Nice.
And then as far as decks, Ian knows his meta. It's Vivi, Rogzai. There is a Rogzai list that has run this.
Interesting.
Jorah, Heliod, the Radiant Dawn, Kefka, and then like he mentioned, Golbez.
Mm.
I also have run this a lot in Rockside too, funny enough. Like this
can
is
see
I
that.
wonder
I
if
can
that's
totally
you as
see
well. Yeah, in the top list in the tournament.
Well, I can tell you. I think.
Ian's like, that's really interesting. The past lists that I've taken to tournaments have been VV, Rogside, you are. No, I'm just
yeah, exactly.
Wow, crazy.
Oh, weird. Huh?
But thank you, y'all, for kind of giving us a better picture of where we're seeing it. And I think that this card, like Ian had mentioned, this card did see play. So that was just the past 3 months. I feel like this has been like CEDH adjacent for a long time. So like you see it in and out of lists for a while. And I'm sure the second this pod gets released and Ian's face is on the screen, people will say, I also think Displacement Wave is a good card. I've been playing it for 4 or 5 years, all yada yada yada. So I'm sure that the listeners at home will let us know what list that they play Displacement Wave in, and we can kind of take a blast back to the past, because I think there's a lot of lists, like older lists, that probably played this a lot too. Cool. All right. So we've kind of reviewed where we see it being played. Ian, do you want to get into your first major point? Why should we be playing Displacement Wave in our CEDH list?
Yeah, the big one is like, as I sort of mentioned in the beginning, right? If I have to elevator pitch this card, it is always going to be, hey, you're a deck that really, really folds to certain pieces of disruption, right? Whether it be stacks pieces, whether it be, X, Y, or Z things. And you might be saying to yourself, well, why don't I just run a card like Chain of Vapor? And it's like, well, Chain of Vapor has, unless things go very well for you, but a single target, right? Or Into the Flood Maw is another example, right? And this is one of those cards that's, I want to run a Cyclonic Rift style effect, but I cannot afford to actually pay 7 and respectfully resolve a Cyclonic Rift. That's where Displacement Wave goes. That's the sweet spot. As I mentioned, the other big point that we mentioned, that sort of early description, is that whole point about, hey, let's pick up those zeros and play them again. And if I get some sort of benefit for them, boom, great. Happy to do that too,
Yeah. So just the idea that this kind of deals with multiple potential issues that you can have at once, and it's just very different from those singular targeted Into the Flood Maw, Chain of Vapor, that also have downsides in their own right.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to think of it that way. I'm sure we're going to be doing a lot of conversations about this card versus Cyclonic Rift, because I think that those cards they're just so similar.
Yeah.
So we might as well just get the cat out of the bag now. Let's kind of talk about where you see the differences between this card and Cyclonic Rift while we're in the positives, so we can get ahead of Ya's eventual downsides that I don't know, but I'm guessing we'll see coming. So like, how do you view this if someone is looking at Cyclonic Rift in their left hand and Displacement Wave in their right?
Yeah.
Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, my literal like sweet spot for this conversation is like, what is your deck doing, right? Because if I'm looking at the Thrasioses, the Kinnons, God, I sound like an old man when I talk like that. The Thrasioses, the Kinnons of the world, maybe even a Smothering Tithe friendly Blue Farm style list, right? And even then, like if you look at most Blue Farm lists, they're not even running Cyc Rift nowadays, right? Like it's kind of wild. But like these lists that are just like, oh, listen, dog, I got nothing but mana, right? Like those are the decks where you stick a Cyc Rift in, because it's always better in those spots, right? It's a card that just goes, hey, everybody else, I love what you're doing. Enough.
Yes.
Put it away. But 7 mana, that is a hard hill to die on, right? And it is one of the most fragile card types in the format, a blue instant, right? Yeah. Pyroblast, Red Blast, Fluster, Force, Pact. I can go on for days, right?
Guttural Response, obvious. CEDH staple.
It's Ollie CEDH staple, guttural response. And listen, Displacement Wave gets hit by some of those, right? But at the end of the day, hey, look at Dodger's Dispel. No, I'm kidding. But it really is, it's that discount that you're really in there for, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And listeners at home, Cyclonic Rift is one in a blue. Just in case you don't know what the CEDH pretty much staple is. One in a blue for an instant, return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand, and then you can overload it for 6 in a blue. If you do, change target in the text to each. So it's asymmetrical. It will pick up all of your opponent's stuff. Notably,
Yep.
does not pick up your own stuff that like Displacement Wave
Yep.
does. So that's kind of the big distinctions between the
Yeah.
two card. It is interesting that there is kind of some fringe benefits, like you said. Like you
Oh, yeah.
laughed about it dodging dispel, but that's relevant. I
Yeah,
see
yeah.
a decent amount of dispel.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
technically relevant.
Yeah, yeah. It's a little spot in there for sure. And you know, going back to those decks that care about those spell casts, right? The VVs, the Joy Res of the world, right? For those, as I said, for those, I don't even think this is a conversation. I think you just play Displacement Wave in those decks, like that. Like I'm very like not a black and white person in this format. That is something I feel very black and white about. In those decks specifically, you pay the thing that lets you pick up and get. Like I can't say how many times I've manually burned people out on VV by being like 15
Absolutely.
spells in and being like, cool, I'll pick up 8 more, and they're like, oh, but that was the last 8. Like my life
So
total.
yeah. So this artifact synergy, that's an awesome
Yeah.
second point. The artifact synergy, let's talk. Okay, so outside of VV,
Yeah.
where you're picking up your rocks and recasting them again,
Mhm.
let's
Mhm.
really talk for the listeners about what that looks like manually. So,
Mm.
like the idea of, okay, what is a scenario that you could create in your head right now of an actual CEDH board state
Yeah.
where you, after sequencing, come out on top because of all of these rocks?
Oh, sure. Yeah, 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 yeah. So, let's talk about Vivi because I think it is
Mhm.
probably the most relevant right now. And I've had this situation come up in a tournament, I think like literally 2 weeks ago with this beautiful displacement wave. I'm looking down an opponent. I have an Ophidian Eye on my Vivi, right? And I'm looking at my board state, and I've already activated Vivi, right? So
Mhm.
I'm no longer netting positive mana, and I'm playing the version of the deck that's a little bit more mid range, right? Not necessarily like full mid-range all counter spells, but more so the fact that like, you know, I'm not on my desperate rituals, my seething songs, and my pyretic rituals anymore, right?
Yeah.
So we're getting down to the wire. My Yuriko opponent's staring there, giving me daggers at 8 life left, and I'm like, okay, I've got to hit something off these next couple spells that's going to allow me to basically, with only like 1 or 2 mana left, get to 8 more spell casts, right?
Mhm.
I cast a spell, rip 3 off the top, and boom, there's displacement wave. I throw it down for X equals 1. I bounce, first of all, some of their ninjas that hypothetically, if things go wrong, could could come a cracking back.
Mhm.
But more importantly, I bounce an Urza's Bauble, a Mishra's Bauble, a Soul Ring, a Mana Vault, a Paradise Mantle, etc. Put them all back in
Absolutely.
my hand, and I'm like, cool, this is, I believe, 24 cards that I've just picked up in the meantime due to the Ophidian Eye on VV, right? So a little bit of a difference maker there, to say the
Yeah.
least.
That's awesome. I know it comes to those rocks too. Like, not only are we
Mhm.
getting the benefit from just like playing that rock
Yeah.
back, even if it's a zero rock that does nothing, right? Like, we're getting the benefit from a VV trigger in that scenario, but
Yeah.
also the mana positive rocks can turn
Yeah.
into, like you kind of mentioned it in our little elevator pitch intro, but the positive rocks you can tap to pay for this displacement wave to float this
Yep.
whatever amount of mana, put it into a displacement wave, pull all those rocks back, still have mana
Absolutely.
left over to recast these rocks and
Mhm.
almost play it as a ritual effect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you talk about how this kind of synergy works, and maybe even in some other decks besides VV where you've seen
Yeah.
just
Sure. Sure. Sure.
like a massive amount of mana?
Yeah, I mean, like, so this has happened in multiple decks with like similar scenarios there, right? Where you're basically looking at this reality in which you can go, okay, you know, for example, think about especially the cards that people are starting to play keys for again, right? Or your
Mhm.
3 mana Tezzerets, your Mana Vault, your Grim Monolith, your etc., right? Maybe it's your Mox Opal that you've already tapped for the turn being, right? All of these cards that basically you can invest into, and they can either yield you at least even or more mana, right? When you look at Mox Amber, Mox Opal, Mana Vault, Soul Ring, etc., right? And now also imagine, and this is a real example that I pulled up from the past. I don't remember what deck it was. It might have been Rogsai at the time, but I was playing a Rogsai game post ban, and I remember specifically there's a Magda in the pod with me, and they've got 2 Magda dwarves, right? There's like a Thrasios deck in the pod. It's got a Mana Dork, it's got a Thrasios out, right? I launch a displacement wave X equals 2. Magda, 3 dwarves, a Stax piece, a Thrasios, a Mana Dork, all of those things right back to my opponent's hands. And now for decks like Blue Farm and Rogsai and things like that, right? Getting your rocks picked up is sort of a pain in the butt, but it's never going to like throw you off super well, like super intensely, right? But when you're
Mhm.
looking at Sisseys, at Thrasios decks, at these turbo cradle decks, right? Imagine your opponent's Chatterstorm for 4, and then you go cool Displacement Wave for 0. Nice try, silly goose. Like,
Yeah.
and actually one of the biggest sells that I keep forgetting to mention here is the fact that tokens have a mana value of 0, right? Going back to this Chatterstorm talk, but specifically,
Hmm.
I have had situations where I'm staring down the gun of an opponent with a Smothering Tithe, about to go into their turn cycle with like 15 treasures. And I know they can't win right now at instant speed, but I know for a fact if they untap, we are deep in the frying pan, right? And
Heck
I'm like,
yeah.
cool. I'm gonna pick up your Rhystic Study and your Esper Sentinel and your Mana Dork and all 15 of those treasures, please and thank you very much. And yeah, I might pass the turn and my opponent gets like another treasure or two, but it ain't 15.
That's
Yeah.
true. That's true. Pass the baton, Ian, because this was one
Yeah.
of my fringe points. Ugh, I caught the baton. Okay, so my my fringe point was exactly that. Is that the
Yeah.
floor of x equals 0, so two blue, x equals 0, just gets rid of a ton of treasure tokens. And a lot of the time now we're seeing these tapped treasure tokens come from Tataru Taru. So
Mm,
if you have, I play in a really Sisei heavy meta. So
yeah.
if I have two Siseis who both have a Tataru Taru and they have like 3 tap treasure tokens, I'm like, okay, I have to hit this displacement wave
Yeah.
x equals 0 now. Like there isn't, and they don't get to
Yeah.
float mana, they don't get to play their
Yeah.
instants, they don't get to do anything about it, right? So
Yeah.
not only is it the smothering tides that this thing is doing work against, but it's also the Tataru Tarus who's bringing the tap
Yep.
tokens.
Yep.
And another thing is that I actually think that there's a fringe benefit at the floor of x equals 0 by just putting Roger back in people's hands,
Oh, sure.
because the flare of duplication threat is so real all the time, or
Hmm.
deflecting SWAT, fierce
Yeah.
guardianship, whatever. So
Yeah.
I think that at x equals 0
Yeah.
specifically being the floor for this card, it's a really high
Yeah.
floor. Can we think of any other tokens? Like what
Yeah.
other tokens do we see in CEDH that we can like orc
Very
army,
common. Yeah.
like a big old orc army at x equals
That's actually
0
really
gets
funny. You can X
yeah
equal 0 and then delete a 21 power orc army
yeah
sometimes. It's pretty funny.
yeah 2 mana delete orc
Relevant.
army.
Yeah. Listen, I've spent a real kill spell on an orc army before. I have no problem putting a displacement wave in and maybe getting some other marginal benefits. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. You
Like,
mentioned the Chatterstorm
yeah.
squirrels, which is pretty fringe to
Yeah.
Rugthras, and not all
Oh,
of
for
them are
sure.
on it, but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
we living in the fringe right now,
Yeah.
baby.
Hey,
So
look, some Nintugos, they all have
yes,
their
some
True.
bugs, okay.
yeah. Yeah.
Some
Hell yeah.
changelings from a black market connections. That's relevant
That's
sometimes.
definitely something I've seen in the CEDH game
Yeah.
before.
Whoa, Ian. Okay, I play that in Corvold, bro. But that's my fringe point. There is
Yeah,
just
yeah,
that
yeah.
the floor of x equals 0 is not
Right.
nothing.
Yes, agreed. Agreed. I do think X equals 2 is almost always like every time I think about when I've won a game with this deck, it's almost always X equals 2 because X equals 2
Interesting.
covers so many hate bears and random one-off stacks pieces
Yeah,
and
the damping
commanders like you
spheres.
mentioned.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And like obviously stacks pieces aren't what they were in the metagame beforehand, right? But like you're still gonna run into that one silly goose playing Dranith or Vexing Bauble or all of those, like these are still real cards in the metagame, right?
for sure.
And there are gonna be times where those cards honk you pretty hard, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Wait, Ian, does that mean I'm a silly goose? I played those cards.
listen,
Wait a minute. Am I the silly
listen.
goose? Whoa. Trash talking my vexing bauble, bro?
Listen, no, don't get me wrong. I play the heck out of Vexing Bubble. Vexing Bubble is the afterthought there. It's more the fact that
Okay.
people are
It's
just putting all their
oh,
hate bears back in the sleep with in the pasture. You know what I mean? Like,
that's fair. That is
True.
fair. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Do you have any other points for this card, Ian? So we kind of talked about the
Ooh.
single effect versus the multiple. We talked about
Yeah.
the artifact synergies. We talked about like commander synergies
Yeah.
and the floor of x equals 0. You got anything else for us?
Last point is like really think about your local cradle players. Like people have been, having strong feelings about how many cradle decks are running around in the format. Think about the last time a Rogthras could survive an X equals 2 displacement wave, and you'll be like, oh, never, cool. like,
Yeah.
you hit the card Time Walk, try like 3 of those in one card. It's real good.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. We're gonna have the Rogthras Discord in shambles right now.
Yeah. They're like, I've actually heard that card's bad and no one should play it. It's so weird.
It's terrible.
get that.
Trash
We
card.
get that
Yeah.
occasionally.
Yeah, we do. This is propaganda.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. I do have one more fringe points before we let Ya, try to rip into this card here. I do think that I really like the power of Mistrise Village right now in the format. And specifically, I feel like Mistrise Village pairs really well with these cards that you can dump a lot of mana into to get a lot of value, right? So it's an uncapped card in a sense that you can just dump a ton of mana into it. At that point, it's effectively an overloaded Cyclonic Rift, right?
Yeah.
And it is a game-breaking card. I
Yeah.
really like that it's in the same color pie, so we can potentially, have this in case of emergency break glass. Like I am stopping this. Like I'm grinding this game to a halt, right? And hopefully you're doing so with your own rocks so that you
Right.
are mana positive,
Yeah.
a la a culling ritual, which I do see this very similarly in that same vein as a culling ritual, right?
Glad you brought that up. Yes.
Banger card, by the way. So I just really like the synergy with Mistrise Village and the decks that would be running that. Which I mean, if you're in the same color pie, you probably should be running that card.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
I cannot stress that enough.
Yeah.
If you have the option of Calling Ritual or this, what are you doing, silly
Yeah.
goose?
Yeah.
Don't be playing this. Play Calling Ritual.
Yeah,
That card's not
no.
okay.
Yeah.
That card is the closest thing we will ever have to a dockside again.
Agreed.
You
Yeah.
play Calling Ritual.
Culling Ritual, top 5
Yeah.
card in CEDH, don't at me. Yeah. But
Easy
yeah,
dub. Easy dub.
that's my fringe point is just
Yeah.
Mistrise Village or making this uncounterable seems pretty good.
There's also one other real small thing I want to throw in there. There are a number of cards that I would consider like expend cards, right? Which is not probably the best articulation of that point, but basically like a Wish Claw, for example, right? And this is similar with Culling Ritual, right? Like a card that you get some sort of marginal benefit from doing the thing and then getting something out of it, right? So, for example, a very powerful ETB effect, right? Displacement Wave. Once again, this is we're referring to a fringe point. That one
Yeah.
little last thing that hopefully might
Yeah,
tip one
cherry on
viewer
top.
over, right? Yeah, exactly. But maybe you cook your Wish Claw. Maybe you're just like, hey, I need a board wipe, and also this board is untenable. Let's do the wave, everybody. Just everyone pick it up. Everyone calm down. We're getting a little crazy in here, like let's maybe reset a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I do like the idea of since we're talking about the idea of resetting things. I bet, and just to be transparent, I've never played this in a deck. I'm gonna be real with you. I'm a Jund boy, so I have a little bit of leeway here. I've never played it in a deck, but I could imagine there's a world where you're in blue, so you can make the argument you're probably on a couple of clone effects. So you could potentially displacement wave one of your clones back up that was used early. We kind of talked about this in the Philia episode that we just released, where you can reset your clone. And let's say there's something juicy on there's a 5-cost creature that you want to, clone for yourself. You can pick everything up below that 5-cost creature and replay out your clone so that you can get a copy of that. So by deciding what the value of X is and potentially picking up your clones, you can then replay your clones and then switch them up into something else that you want.
What I really like about now getting to see the visuals of this experience is watching Yad like have a really thoughtful processing of things people are saying, and then clearly just go to work, just writing what is effectively verbal slam poetry.
Yeah. He's like,
No way.
that thing.
No.
Wait, I can see his notes right now. He just wrote, "Kyle's an idiot." What a terrible point, Kyle. This is why.
No. I was actually just right now thinking that your last point, Kyle, about being able to pick up your clones, right? I think a clone that we don't see as much anymore is Phantasmal Image. Right. And I think what I like about this card, right, just my fringe point for this card is that it puts back without targeting, right, your Phantasmal Image, which is such a powerful clone effect.
Yeah,
that we don't see anymore because of its fragility, right? Like the ability to just go, cool, I get my flesh duplicate and my Phantasmal Image back in my hand for, again, X equals 2 is exceptionally powerful, right? Like you get it back, you don't have to sacrifice it, you get your flesh duplicate back for another round of 3 in a Kefka list, in a VV list. Like that might just be, if it's not the game, it just propels you that much further forward.
It's kind of interesting too if we're thinking about resetting if you're playing your own stacks piece too, because like I'm an absolute fanboy of Disruptor Flute, and we've done a podcast on that. Like that's a good card. Like you can reset your own Disruptor Flute if you need to. So let's say you don't have enough mana, to deal with some massive bomb on the board in Swiss that you've never seen in your life. Like you can just pull up that disruptor flute, recast that disruptor flute with whatever excess, colorless mana you have from that as well to reset it. It's pretty interesting. It's so funny how we literally just did a podcast on Philia, and there was a lot of the same conversations that we're having now because it's the whole pickup effect. It's kind of similar to the exile and bring back at the end of turn. It's super interesting. It does the same thing like we were talking about in the Philia episode with Gilded Drake too. So you can pick up the Gilded Drake and then you can re-Gilded Drake again. For those players who are still on Gilded Drake, I don't know, Ian, do you think that's a silly goose card? Because I love that card.
Gilded Drake. Okay, so small tirade here.
Small tangent.
I have been playing this for quite some time, right? Like back when the 64-person tournament was regaled as the largest tournament of all time. And so I have been like experiencing Gilded Drake and experiencing how ineffective Gilded Drake has been for years and years and years, right? But for some reason, the past 6 months, that card is yoked out of its mind right now. It is a killer right now. It is to the point where I'm just throwing it on my mid-range decks, and it may be because we have enough creatures in the format that just are objectively like if I'm taking a Kinnan or a Bowmaster or a Tataru Taru or an Esper Sentinel or a Ranger Captain, or obviously they're not going to actually let you take the Ranger Captain.
Yeah,
but,
exactly. No, you passed priority. You didn't sack it. Nope.
Yeah, exactly. But like any of the above, if I'm yanking any of those silly geese, Gilded Drake is actually like it's to the point where I was playing in my Kefka list at the 20K. I was playing Volatile and Gilded Drake because of how many times I just yoinked someone's win con. It was insane. And also, if you're worried about decks like Sisay, right? Like, don't tell the Sisay pilots, but they can't win without Sisay. Like, it's really, it's kind of awkward for them,
Hey, I will say there's a couple of Sisay pilots in my meta that do still play like Thoracle Consult, okay? So, they exist.
Look, I do too, but
they
exist.
It's
a lot harder
okay.
for them. It's a lot harder for them.
But that's pretty funny. You honestly took me for a roller coaster ride there. I'm a big Gilded Drake enjoyer, and I always have been. I do get what you're saying, though. Like, years ago, when every I think Yaw introduced me to CEDH and he was like, oh yeah, people don't play creatures. Like maybe you'll see like 8 to 12, and I'm like, oh, okay. So it's not a creature format. And then fast forward to now, lists have like 23 to sometimes 30 creatures. Hell, if you're in like some fringe shoutout Tazri list, you're at 40 creatures. I don't know. Like,
you're not wrong.
So it is very interesting to see the progression of Gilded Drake through the years, but I do think it's in a really nice position right now.
I agree.
And it works pretty well with this card Displacement Wave.
Yeah, and also one last point on that goes back to that point that you mentioned about yoinking commanders and turning off free interaction. Like there was a game at the 20K where I get Gataxian Probe someone early on. They were playing a black-red deck, but I knew they had Flare and Deflecting Swat in their hand, and there was a bauble out, and I was like, I know if I push right now, that bauble's getting cracked. But if I Drake them right now, I don't think the other player is going to crack a bauble to let them fight over their commander. So I was like, all right, let me just take their commander away. And they were like, bet, I ain't cracking this bauble. And I was like, cool, 2 less counter spells for my win attempt.
Hot.
Win
nice.
Yeah.
That's hot.
What were they playing in Rakdos? Was it like Deadpool or like Rakdos Muscle or Ob or something like that? Some one of those. Kuja. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Kuja. Whoa.
Kuja kind of cooks. I think that is a card that will probably make a really deep run one time, and then people will be like, never again, bang bang. But like,
we'll see it once. You'll review that tournament for sure, and we'll think back to this point in time. All right. I think that's all our points. We are ready. You have it, honestly, I think me and Ian kind of killed it. So you got a tough task here, but we are willing to help you a little bit, maybe. We'll see. All right. What are some downsides of why you shouldn't play Displacement Wave in the 99?
Now, I'm not gonna lie to you. I had a real hard time with this one. I just to pull the curtain back, Kyle and I talked about like which one of us should do this, and I was like, you know what? Let me challenge myself and take a shot at this because this is a card that I have included in lists, but I have never drawn. Right? It's just the variance of the game, right? Like I have it in my Kefka list, I've had it in some of my other lists, and it's just never shown up. Like I don't even think I've drawn it. So I am probably more like leaning towards like liking this card than not. But I think
no spoilers.
no spoilers. Like this is just how I am. As a reactive spell, this does just feel like I think the reason we don't see it played, and that for listeners right now, like it just seems like a lot of mana to have to spend on a main phase to reset the board, especially with that double blue.
Mm.
Right. I think that that's like the double blue we talk about a lot, like in some decks, maybe not in VV.
Of
I
course
definitely
not.
give it that. In VV, definitely probably not. But like in a Kefka list, like even just blue farm, right? Like finding the double blue to then also be able to push further
Mhm.
can feel really difficult. And I think that in decks that are also really creature heavy,
Mhm.
if you're in a Rog Thrash list, right, where you're looking to reset like that, and that deck is a lot more prevalent than it's really prevalent right now, right?
Yeah,
Like this is a card that you can't run in a like that just because it
absolutely
resets
not.
your game plan back
Retweet.
so badly. I agree with Ian so much. Like the more we talked and the more he kind of talked about his points, like in a artifact heavy deck, oh my gosh, this thing is so hot.
Yeah.
But if you're in a blue list with a lot, like you said, like a Sisse,
Yeah.
a Rog Thrash, you're probably can't run this card, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of mana to kind of get to that game plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let's kind of dissect that point here because we kind of went into 3 points here. So the first point was the classic low-hanging fruit
Yeah,
of this
super low.
podcast.
I completely agree.
2 pips hard. like, so like 2 pips
But,
difficult.
like,
but
you
also,
know,
yeah.
It's an easy point, but it's based, right? Like
No,
it is
100%.
so true in this format, right? Like think about how many times you're like, well, Grand Abolisher is strictly better than Voice of Victory, and also I'm gonna play the F out of a Voice of Victory and not play Grand Abolisher because who is too white?
Yeah.
Who?
Exactly.
Who?
Exactly. No, it's low hanging fruit, and we talk about it. But we also, for a while, Ian, for some context to the podcast, if you've been a long time listener, you know this. For a while, we avoided the low hanging fruit. But then people were like, why don't you talk about the biggest downside? It costs a lot of mana. And we're like, we should talk about low hanging fruit a little bit.
Just a little bit,
We should probably talk about it.
Yeah.
But so the mana costs 100% understandable, yeah. An interesting point that you made and a descriptor that you used that I actually kind of didn't necessarily agree with is the fact that you call it a reactive spell. It's a very interesting thought process. Can you elaborate on that?
As a reactive spell, right?
I
Treating
see.
it like, because I think when people look at the thumbnail and they look at this card, their initial reaction, you already mentioned it, and I actually try to dance around it. They immediately compare this to Cyclonic Rift,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and Cyclonic Rift is the reactive spell, right? Like you're trying to cast it on a end step so that you can go into your turn with like no whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So I think people's initial reaction to this is to think about this card the same way initially, right? Is the initial like, oh, when we read card, right, all we see is like, okay, we're returning things to back to hand, and people,
Yeah.
I think, right away think about other people's stuff rather
Yeah.
than also including our own first, right? And so giving it away a little bit, what I think I like about cards like this is the layers to this card, right? Okay,
Yeah.
cool, we read about it. Now we go, okay, well, wait, what if I don't play this reactively, right? What that's what
Yeah.
Ian's saying. And so I'm saying that as a straightforward reactive card to just bounce people's stuff back, right? They're even just doing X equals 0, right? You're spending the double blue, which can be important to you, where X is 0. You're still having to spend double blue, and that in some lists that could be real hard. Like I don't know if I can see a RAW list running this type of card.
Never.
Right.
So I actually really like that point because like I think this is like one of those ways that I think listeners can have that level up moment, right? Is because I think people are so easy and don't get me wrong, like without sitting here, like we're literally gonna spend like an hour talking about a card, right? So we have the luxury of being
That's
right.
the podcast, baby.
Right, exactly. And like, oh God, this is my favorite fucking thing. Sorry, language.
Go ahead.
You're chilling.
But I like spend so much time talking about this format, and especially when like folks want to like, maybe they can only jump in for like a single coaching session or something like that, right? Like they're looking for a lot of answers really fast. And I'm like, CEDH is the most gray area format in the entire world. So if you want someone who's going to give you harsh opinions that you want black and white answers to with not a lot of thought afterwards, do not hire me.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if there's ambiguity, I will let you know because the format works like that. And I think that's a really great point because, like, if you look at this as a strictly disruptive spell, with yourself not basically treating it like a culling ritual card, but instead treating it like a deluge, right? Or a cyclonic
Mhm.
rift where you're just disrupting with it. It's dog water. It's
Yeah.
way worse than those cards, right? But I think if you're playing it to give yourself that little boom, then yeah, it's good in that capacity. But yeah, you're right. Like there are many utilities, and if we're looking at the card in an objective vacuum, a part of an objective vacuum is recognizing when it is bad, even if I am here advocating for it, right?
Mhm.
Because like there's many cards in this format, right? Like Adnos is a good card, but I'm also not going to recommend it in Tayam. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
there are cards that are just very good at doing one thing, but not others, you know?
Yeah. And a point that we also didn't make that's also kind of like writing on the wall here is like it's interesting to consider it as a reactive card
Mm,
when it's a sorcery, right? And
true.
like Cyclonic Rift, we're like, yes, that is a reactive card. It's an instant spell, right? So the
Right.
difference between it's almost walking you into how to play it correctly in that way. And we
Yeah.
are in a flash up enabler meta, but the idea that you really can't use it on someone else's turn. So you
Yeah.
probably should be using it reactively and probably be feel or proactively rather, because you
Yeah.
probably feel like shit if you just cast your wave and pass, right?
And I have done that before, and boy, does it feel awful. Like
Yeah.
casting a displacement wave X=3 into a board state and then getting hit with a silence.
Ugh.
There's never a time when you're more like, cool, I threw the game.
Yeah, it's out the
Great.
window.
That was such a
Yeah.
visceral reaction for me
Yeah,
for
yeah,
you. It
Yeah.
didn't
Just
even happen to me.
yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. The
yeah. Like
classic.
yeah, I've won games like even going back to that tournament a couple weeks ago. I launched an X=3 displacement wave because I knew I'd be able to just drop my VV mana and rebuild.
Mhm.
I picked up two of my own Rhystic studies, and guess who got hit with a silence?
Yeah, and you're like, oh no. Hello,
Yeah, yeah.
darkness, my old
So there's
friend.
it could be bad. Just
Yeah.
throwing it out there. It could be bad.
Oh, for sure.
What you just said kind of takes me straight into my second point. I know that you may want to add some stuff, Kyle, but let me just get into this next point. I
Mhm.
think that as a reactive spell like that, and with so many flash enablers out, this is a downside and also a PSA. You really have to understand where the board state is when you play this card because it's your main phase, and now you're doing something, and and it can feel like a real big uh-oh, right? If you're listening to this and you see the spell, right, you're gonna have like uh-oh alarm bells. And if you were a keen player, you may have just held up mana, right? On your turn, kind of expecting something like this, so that you can now play on top of it. And now what you've done, right, is if you play this and they let it resolve and then they hit you with this a silence, right, like Ian just said, and they floated mana in response and they have a flash enabler, you kind of just gave the same your game plan to somebody else,
Mhm.
right? And I think
Oh, that's a
that
great point.
is like if it's good for you, it could also be really good for somebody else.
Oh yeah.
Is my downside PSA.
Mhm.
That's a big one too. I mean, if somebody just has a couple of mana, if like 3 mana available for like a Valley Flood
Yeah.
Caller, you send all their rocks
Right.
back to their hand. They go, "Cool, thanks for the ritual, bud." Yeah, yeah,
Cracks knuckles. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
cracks knuckles. That's a great point. I didn't even think about that and how it could be beneficial to someone else because the flash meta is real. That's where we're at right now.
That being said, one of the worst parts of Displacement Wave is that it is a sorcery, and we also get those cards. So I'm just like throwing that one out there
Yeah,
too.
that is true. That is true.
No, that's true. I completely agree.
That's a good second point, yeah. Like the idea that you have to be smart with it. You can't just give people their stuff back when they can just win on top of you, right?
Yeah.
It could be really dangerous. Especially, I'm sorry, one thing I was thinking about that happened recently was I saw somebody's Thoracle get stopped. Or they got like stifled, I think, or trick bound.
Whoa.
And then so there was just a Thoracle, like a naked Thoracle sitting on the battlefield, right? And like the idea of just like accidentally like through bad piloting handing something like that's just basically a win back to somebody else's hand is very scary.
Yeah, they
So
look at the consult and the clone in
yeah,
their hand, like, yeah,
like
bet.
yeah, like, say
Yeah.
less.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
there's definitely some dangerous things that you
Yeah.
could hand back to your opponents
Yeah.
by displacement waving them. So I do think there's definitely a skill level that you have to pilot the card correctly because
Yeah.
otherwise you might be just straight up punting straight into your opponents. That's a good
And
point, yeah. I like that.
And this actually goes to, it's really funny because this goes to like the other card that I had like thought about talking about today, which was gonna be Valky, like the
Oh,
God of Lies.
yeah, God of Lies, which is another great card. But that's like, I'm super glad to hear you bring up this point because like there are times where, with my comfort level in the format, looking at cards like Valky, Glasses of Urza, Displacement Wave, like, yeah, you're right. Like some of these cards are precarious, right? Spider-Punk is another great example that's going to be coming out. Is
Oh
like
yeah.
people keep joking about the card that's going to throw more games than any other card, right? Because I genuinely think that there are some of these cards that are going to come out that have these sort of nuanced relationships with like if you're a brilliant window maker, they will make brilliant windows, right? But
Mhm.
if you're someone who is going to look at a card and struggle with the concept of can doesn't always mean should, then it's really going to be a hard balance there, you know?
Oh my God, we should rename the podcast. The can doesn't always mean
you
should.
should. That's so
Oh
good.
Oh
man.
my gosh, that's like half of the cards we bring on this podcast.
And if you're a listener and you want to learn about when you should versus when you could, look at the links below. Check out Ian
Yeah, check out Ian's coaching. We'll link it below.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Appreciate it. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
Talk to you about that stuff. But that's a super interesting thought process. And I hope I honestly I don't know if it's
I
the
love that.
chaotic nature of myself, but I hope that they print more things that like can potentially throw the game, but also potentially win you the game because that just adds more variance to the game. And I kind
Yeah.
of want the variance. I'm not gonna lie. Maybe I just like the chaos.
You know what? I do think that you're like onto a good point, right? Because there is a certain homogeneity that comes with a disciplined line of play, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, this is also going to be a tangent, but this is one that I've wanted to soapbox on for quite some time, right? Like, especially as more proactive players, sometimes you're inclined to sort of go into goblin mode, right? Like as like
Mhm.
the jokes aside, right? Like legitimately, I talk about this game all the time where it's a pickup game after hours. I'm on Marnius, there's a Keurig player, and then there's two other players on two separate like blue farmish decks, right?
Mhm.
And at one point, a ranger captain gets sawed in half, and the next person in turn order also plays a ranger captain. So we're looking at three ranger captains, and I look at this Keurig player, and I'm like, listen, dog, we are so cooked if we start playing their game. If
Yeah.
we're playing their game, we are dead. It is one of those two people winning. And I was like, so you know what? We're playing our own game. I drop a wish claw and I pass it to the Keurig player. And I go, you have fun. I hope you win through these Ranger captains. And if you don't, I'm going to hopefully clean up the mess, brother. Are we good with that? And he was like, bet. I'll pass it back.
Awesome.
That's the chaos that you need to break these board states, dude.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
100% agree. I
yeah.
also, since we're on the tangent, a similar vein of play I've seen recently that I've been enjoying a lot. Play a lot of Oppo. Think that's an underrated card. A lot of people are cutting it, right?
I think that's a
Convincing
good card.
people and talking with people into purposefully tutoring into an Oppo on the board to
Mhm.
break the game state. Game state. That is so
Whoa.
fun. It's so chaotic. I love it every time.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, just tutor into me. I'll get the card. I can cast it right now. Yeah, I'll do
Oh,
it
yeah.
right now. Yeah. And they're like, "Are you sure? Are you lying to me? Are you gonna try to win?" I'm like, "No, dog. I'm just trying to break this up.
I,
Like, I will
yeah,
absolutely get the card I'm saying, and this is gonna be great." But yeah, like
yeah,
I've even gone as far as been like, "I won't look at your hand. I
yeah.
don't care. I don't care. I'll get the card immediately." And they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah."
I've been in games before where someone has had to it was the semifinals, I think, of Cowtown, where there was a point in which Freedom Waffle, NATO, myself, and Dio are playing a game. All people who have been like qualified for the Envy, right?
Yeah.
Crazy nuanced game, right?
Mhm.
And at one point they have to have a very serious discussion about whether Waffle is going to intuition into NATO's Oppo to stop me.
That's crazy.
Just like,
But
just
it's
like
like,
they had to,
Three cards.
the dots on that contract were so deep. You know, it
yeah.
was like
Yeah.
he's
It's
like,
like
you are
you're,
getting interaction to specifically stop Ian and not protect your own win, and
yeah.
also no flash enablers and no win con.
Yeah.
Like he's like, I'm about to give you three cards, brother, and you better be ruining this man's day and
That's
not
so
killing me.
funny.
Oh, but that's the kind of things that we kind of need. And if they print more cards like that that help
Yeah.
break board states that are like the triple Ranger Captain board states, hey, I'm all for it. I am all for it because that's the politics of CEDH I love. I'm not gonna lie. Like that's the kind of stuff where it's like, hey, we're working together for a
Yeah.
short period of time and we're gonna do some
Uh,
crazy stuff to do so. Heck
yeah.
yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
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 Oh man. All right, we got huge tangent. Let's rope ourselves back in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get into your third point. Third
Okay,
downside.
third one is really weak. I'm not gonna lie. I was scrambling.
What?
I just needed something. I'm being honest. Like, just again, we're honest here. We're honest evaluators of cards. And you had mentioned it, but like, I kind of like Chain of Vapor here
Mhm.
for a similar kind of effect, right? If you're gonna do this main phase, or actually no, and I think the flexibility of a Chain of Vapor is if you're a Chaos agent, kind of like I am, you could do it in somebody's end stat,
Yeah.
right? For literally just one blue pip,
Yeah.
and you're targeting yourself and you're bouncing out back all of your like. I honestly, I think one of the very first CEDH games I ever watched, right when I was learning about the game, was some play to win. No, playing with power, where that's what they were doing. I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
right, and it kind of broke my brain as a casual player to go, wait, this negative effect, right, can be used towards again like that, those layers that we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh,
Mhm.
whoa, this is really cool.
Yeah, and honestly, my only counter argument to that just comes back to the point of like that works until you need to bounce two things.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
Correct.
then you're
Correct.
like,
Correct.
ah.
Dang it. Yeah. And there's also the benefit with Chain too is like I have a love-hate relationship with Chain where like you can also
Yeah.
be pointing it at the thing that you need to get rid of, but then you're
Yeah.
handing them the keys to the kingdom. They can get rid of one of your thing. Like it's always going to be one of those
Bounce
battles
back
of
and forth.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's always going to be a mess. And that being said, it does play very similarly, where
Mhm.
you can do it proactively yourself and just target your own stuff. And that's awesome. It honestly plays really similarly because you
Mhm.
can bounce opponents like Wishclaw Talismans on someone else's board and give it back to yourself. It's very interesting, but I don't think that any of these cards that we've talked about and compared it to, Chain, Cyclonic Rift, even Flood Maw, like all of those are like similar, not the same. Right. And a lot of the times you're probably playing a suite of those, like pick your
Yeah.
poison. Like you're playing two to four of them potentially in the list, depending on your color pie, right?
Yeah, I was gonna button this whole point with the real secret to today's lesson is that there's like 5 to 10 analogous cards that all kind of do the same thing. If we looked at specifically filter out, desynchronization, cyclonic rift, chain of vapor, displacement wave, yeah, I'm gonna there's a lot there, and look at them as a toolkit genuinely because there are different decks that care about each and every one of those effects in different capacities. And
Yeah.
if you are a brewer in this format, right, or you're trying to innovate, even if you are trying to find micro decisions on specific slots for your archetype, right? Even when I've messed with Rogsai in the past, I have looked at each and every one of those cards and gone, which one's the best window? Which one's optimal? Which one's most applicable? Boom, 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 boom. Let's articulate how I can play each and every one of these to potentially leverage myself to more winning positions, right? So like
Yeah.
the secret of today is that like yes, we're talking about one card, but there's actually like six that all kind of do a very similar thing, and you get to pick and choose whatever
Absolutely.
sweater feels most comfortable at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Or whatever style sweater fits with your home pod. Because
exactly.
like at the end of the day too, those minute differences can a lot of times just be solved based on like, oh, you play the same three decks every week.
Yep.
Hey, this card's gonna be way better for you than this other one.
Yeah. Yes. And you know, one point in the negative to play devil's advocate against my own card here, right? The X equals 3 displacement wave. I have yet to resolve an X equals 3 without it sucking a little bit for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're either hitting probably your commander, right? You're probably hitting, you know, if you're hitting every heuristic study on the field, maybe that's just a little too much mana at that point, right? Like every time I've resolved an X equals 3, especially with VV, like rest in piss, like the X equals 3 VVs when you're trying to get rid of 2 heuristic studies and then you got to play VV afterwards is always like,
Ugh.
oh, backbreaking. But that all being said, there are, you know, there are applicable scenarios for each and every one, right? But like, especially, you know, I mentioned Smothering Tithe earlier, right? Like in that scenario I was talking about, I couldn't launch at X equals 4. There are other cards that just blanket hit it, you
Yeah.
know, and just bounce everything that is disturbing to you
Yeah.
in your game plan.
And I do think another just like generic downside is that I feel like with the innovation of the meta currently, we're seeing a lot more random giant stuff. Like
Mm,
really big things. Like I'm thinking lurking predators. I'm just gonna throw it. Shout out Hire, who was on this podcast earlier. Like we'll just see these like large engines, things that your displacement wave you are not going to pay enough mana into. So if you cast it for a 2, X equals 2, and X equals 3, like you were saying, Ian, you can just leave something on the board. Unfortunately, you may feel like you have to, otherwise you lose the game. But you could be inherently leaving some massive piece on the board that your opponent just gets to keep. And now, sure, you reset the game, quote unquote, but really you reset the game, but one person is way further ahead. Thoughts on that, Ian? Have you kind of been in that scenario where you've ever had to displacement wave and then you leave something up and you're like, well, if I didn't do that, I would have lost the game, but this feels real rough.
Yeah. I mean, the sorcery speed aspect really locks that in, like
Yeah.
it is just an aspect of the card that we just, got to live with. Is that, yeah, at the end of the day, and I think this goes back to Ya's original point, right? It's like it is not a disruptive tool as much as we would like it to be.
Yeah.
It can be, once again, if you're playing in a pod full of green decks, like yoink, good luck with your mana torch,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
like,
Toss the elves out the window.
yeah, exactly. But like you're playing against Blue Farm and they're like, oh no, don't bounce on my rocks so I can play a breach and get the storm up for brain freeze. No, please don't do it. And you're like, yeah, fuck. And I don't know. What do you want from me? Like but sometimes you got a loaded gun that's meant to give you the W, but then someone goes, hey, this is the suboptimal scenario for this. So what are you
Mhm.
gonna do? And you're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and
Feels
die, I
rough.
guess.
Yeah. Even if you just leave like a singular Crom out for somebody, you're like, damn, wish I didn't have to just leave Blue Farm with a Crom on the board.
Yeah, and I think that, the as much as like don't get me wrong, I'm on team big idiots, right? Like I was one of the first people really pushing Atali, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think necessarily that I am as worried about like oh no, I left the con Sphinx with displacement wave, right? Like hopefully there are other tools in the deck for that toolbox, but like sometimes you don't draw the right one, right? And like you
Yeah.
look at Cyclonic Rift and you're like, hey, that would have been cheaper.
Yeah. It would have been a lot better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Do you have any more final downsides before we get into our favorite points?
No, that's good.
All right, yeah. Why don't you start us off? What favorite point of ours did you have where you were like, man, that displacement wave card, maybe you may be onto something here?
It's the fact that this just can really hose Rogthras specifically. There's just
You're
any of
just
the
a
creative form,
rock dress hater.
right? Like the no. I don't hate the deck at all, but I think that as that deck gains more popularity and more legs, and people are looking at the as people are looking at Fire Covenant or Toxic Deluge, right? Like if you're in a Sans Black type of list, this is a really good answer, right? Like
Mhm.
two blue to just bounce all tokens just feels pretty good,
Yeah.
right? Like when you're looking at, and honestly, we didn't talk about it just because I don't think it's as popular, but like I'm pretty sure this also hits like all of the abhorrent Oculus two
Oh,
two
the
if that's
morphs?
the
Is that
morphs, like
are they
because
zero?
those are
They are, right?
technically zero, right? Like because they're
Yeah, I believe
backside, they're
so.
just two morphs. So unless they can respond, unless they have the mana up to flip those creatures, assuming they're creatures, it
Yeah.
also gets that if they're somehow still on that tech.
Oh, yeah. What have you done? You know, Abhorrent Oculus is like one of the most highly recommended cards from our community. And once again, we've mentioned the card without doing a podcast on it. I'm sorry, listeners. Please don't comment below. Waiting
Well,
day
what we don't know right
873.
now is
Yeah.
that editing Kyle has gone back and censored every time we said the word.
Oh yeah,
And so
just
they
bleep
just
it
have to
out.
figure out.
And the community's
Oh,
like,
make
which
that a
card
whole
is it?
thing.
Oh, yeah. No, I
People
am
will be
not.
stoked.
No, I'm
Our
not
community
censoring the
loves
people.
redacted.
Yeah, our community. Oh my gosh. Oh, but that's an awesome point. Yeah, I agree with you. That's
Yeah.
a great point. Ian, what was your favorite point of Yaws that you were like, yeah, that's probably the biggest downside to the card?
Yeah, I mean just the pragmatic nature of the fact that like it is limited in its uses as a tool in the toolbox, right? Like it has some, scenarios and applications where it's extremely effective, but I love bringing up the fact that like there are, archetypes that are just not going to want this type of card, right? There are certain speeds of it as a disruptive piece exclusively where in that vein, and I think you sort of both of you hybridized this point at one point, like making it
Mhm.
individually. Like there are just going to be environments in which this card will not hold a candle to other peers that it has, right?
Yeah.
As far as like being able to disrupt what your opponents are doing, and especially against, as we talked about multiple times, like the rock decks compared to the dork decks, right?
Mhm.
Not that the dork decks needed anything else to kick the piss out of them, right? But like,
Yeah. A second printing
uh,
of Orcish Bowmaster? No. No.
oh man, yeah, that's a card.
Yeah.
That's
Big
That
card.
is a Magic the Gathering card.
Wish it
But
wasn't, but
yeah, it is. Here we are. At least this card gets rid of that orc army. We got that
Yeah.
going for us, right, team?
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, my favorite downside of yours was just the idea that this could be really dangerous into a flash enabler, like really dangerous. You could be just giving ammunition to your opponent. Don't do that. So, this is a PSA now for all you listeners who will inevitably test out Displacement Wave after listening to this podcast. Be careful when you cast this card. Please count your opponent's mana. Don't do anything
Yeah.
crazy. Or do something crazy, whatever. Have a good time. It's Magic the Gathering.
I was
Good
gonna say
luck.
with
Yeah.
this card, don't do anything crazy feels like maybe kind of not an option.
Yeah.
And that might be one of the
Yeah.
downsides, that might be one of the downsides. Just being like, hey, listen, boys, we're strapped to the rocket. We just gotta launch, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Anybody want to go surfing? Everyone's like, huh?
Look, I've been talking to the sea for a while, but he is not listening to my lessons on consent. Like, so we just gotta ride it,
All right. Well, we got through all of our points here. Ian, you've been a wonderful guest so far. It's time for your most important job, and that's asking Yaw the question.
Yeah. Did we change your minds? Is Displacement Wave a good card?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's going to be too big of a surprise. I think
We did it.
The thing for me is just like how much you can. Yeah, there are a lot of risks, but I just really like a card with some risk, right? Like just because the upside is also just so big, right? Being able to cast this for X equals 2 to bounce all of your stuff back. Hopefully it's just bouncing back stacks pieces that you don't want, all of that. Like I think the key part we didn't really hone on is like it's all non-land permanents under that whatever X is, right? Like I think something I didn't talk about was when I first thought about it, I thought it only bounced back whatever X is equal to, like just 2 drops. But like the fact that it's just X and below is so hot.
Yeah.
To be able to just go, okay, cool. I'm a real mana rock heavy deck. I'm gonna now just basically ritual myself, right? Stop me, right? Like I'm gonna I'm gonna try to win and do whatever you need to, politic whatever you need to. This is happening. I really like that.
Yeah. And piggybacking on what you said, I think Ian, you did a great job of just kind of in general explaining how, when I read this card for the first time, and when a lot of listeners probably read this card for the first time, they're caveman brain. We go, that's an oh shit button. That's a nice looking oh shit button. Like if things are going wrong, I can put things back in people's hands, right? But you kind of explained to us like it's not just an oh shit button. It's a proactive piece.
Yeah.
And the decks that want this the most are the ones that are going to have synergy with that. Hopefully, I'm a big artifact fan. There's going to be more printings in the future that make artifact decks really push forward and become prevalent. I think that this is just a card I'm going to have my eye on for sure as more printings come out and as the strategies just get more and more focused on, things like Vivi, where you're just casting things for free and just having a good time doing it. So I just liked taking this, what looked to be a linear card and turning it into, well, it's much more than that, much more than that. So cool. That's a good card. We did it. Yay. Ian, we did it. We convinced y'all. All right. We're going to do a lightning round with you here, Ian. So we're going to give you a couple of decks. You're just going to say scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, how interested you'd be testing Displacement Wave in that deck. All right. You ready for it?
Yes. Hit me.
Cool. First one, Blue Farm.
7.
Okay. Not bad. What about Noctis?
4.
4. Interesting.
I think Noctis likes its permanence too much. That's
why. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Oh, is an artifact deck, but not necessarily one that,
It feels like a Draenith deck too, though, which is the awkward
part. True. Okay. What about TNT?
The 1. yeah.
I think they like their creatures a little too much, right?
Yeah. They like their little guys,
What about Urza?
Ooh, 8.5, 9. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Like, but what about your constructs? Oh no.
No, legit, like the amount of times you're like, oh no, I have to bounce my Urza's Bauble and my Tormod's Crypt and my blah, 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 blah. And it's like, oh, I just made like 15 mana, dog. Like, what do you mean?
Oh my gosh. That's so hot.
All right. Well, thanks for playing the lightning round with us.
Yeah.
Cuckoo. That's gonna be a soundbite, I promise.
Okay, cool. Feel free to send that one to me too. I'll use
Yeah,
it.
yeah. All right. Listeners, it is time for our favorite closing segment. That's a good card, question mark? If you haven't played with us before, what we're going to do is we are going to provide Ian with the name of an obscure Magic the Gathering card, and it's going to be his job, as well as yours, a listener, to guess everything about that card. Color, type, text, flavor text, artwork, everything. All right, Ian, are you ready for your obscure Magic card?
Yeah. We talked a little bit of early pregame where I was like, I think I know a decent amount of Magic cards, so I'm very excited for this
Yeah.
segment.
He's deep in the
Ian
bag.
flexing on us with his deep, deep bag. We'll see. We'll see how far you get. Do you play other formats? Because a lot of times the people who have better like odds with this are people who play a lot of formats.
Historically, yes, not
Okay.
as much nowadays.
Okay.
Honestly, when one form of Magic becomes your full-time job, you
Yeah.
sort of lose caring for the
Yeah.
other ones, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. All right, listeners, feel free to pause the episode after I give you the name of the card. Shout out to all the Discord and Patreon members who like to play along with us and draw the card in Microsoft Paint, because that's what we'll be doing once
hell
Ian
yeah.
describes this beautiful, beautiful picture. All right. Your card is Triton Tactics.
Oh, it's an instant.
Okay. Instant spell.
It's blue,
Okay.
and I believe it has the mechanic Strive.
Okay. What mana cost are we thinking here? This blue instant that has Strive.
I feel like this is a 1-drop blue instant that has Strive for like 2 and a blue, and it gives like +0/+3 and hexproof. If I'm not crazy.
Wow, that was fast. Okay, are you locking that in? So say that one more time that you think it is.
Okay, I'm pretty sure if I remember this card correctly, because I think it's a Theros block card. I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure Triton Tactics is a 1 in a blue instant that gives something +0/+3 and hexproof, but you can strive it for 2 in a blue to give it more targets. If I'm correct.
Okay. Wait, did you say the instant was 1 in a blue or just blue?
It is blue, but it's 2 in a blue to strive.
Okay, but the total mana cost was 1 blue pip, correct?
One
Or the
blue
top
pip.
top of the card?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty good. What is there artwork or flavor text on this thing?
I think it's like a merfolk and he's like stabbing down on something, right?
A merfolk stabbing down on something. Do you think it has a Triton or nah? Probably a sword. You know, it's called Triton Tactics.
Wait, yeah, he's got a straight. You just made me lose all faith in reality.
Ian's brain, like I could see his eyes. I'm pretty sure they just went cross-eyed and he just like ascended into the heavens because he was so confused. He was like, what? Oh, okay. So we have a merfolk pointing a trident downward. Okay.
Yep.
Any flavor text on this or not? You want to take a guess?
Yeah, he goes, what up, boys? It's Steve hanging out with my Triton. Listen, I got a hot new idea for some tactics. HMU ... You can use this number. My work phone's been off for a couple days.
Dang.
The best. That might be the best.
That might be, pretty close to what it actually was. All right, listeners, I hope your guess was as good as Ian's. Ian, you were so close. You were so close. You had the majority of it. Like,
Okay.
It is a blue instant for 1 blue pip. The artwork is exactly what you're thinking. They're kind of like a back-to-back merfolk situation where they're like, one is pointing the trident down, one's pointing it upward, lethal weapon kind of thing. But the card reads, it does not have Strive, so I think you were thinking of a different card. It is from Theros block. It reads, up to 2 target creatures each get +0/+3 until end of turn. Untap those creatures. At this turn's next end of combat, tap each creature that was blocked by one of those creatures this turn and doesn't untap during its untap step. What?
That's the most blue card I've ever heard.
It's terrible.
That's
this is
so blue.
awful.
I conflated that with there's another one and it's got a picture of Kiora, I think, and she's doing like a weird hand thing and it's whatever the blue strive spell is. I'll find it later, but yeah, I think I combined the 2 cards together.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
this one is way worse than the one that you said. But if you want to like give your creatures some bigger butts, I mean, go for it, I guess. Oh, there's no flavor text on it, but I loved yours. We'll go ahead and submit that to WotC and make sure they make that errata change.
Thank you. Yeah, I sent them an email with some similar flavor text, and for some reason they said email blocked. I don't understand what that is.
Oh, well, that was fun, listeners. I hope you did a good job guessing Triton Tactics, and we'll go ahead and we'll have a blast. I probably drew something amazingly beautiful, and honestly, it probably looks really similar to the original artwork by Jack Wang. So I'm quite talented. Just kidding. Anyway, all right, Ian. Thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. We talked about your coaching a little bit. We're gonna give you the floor here. Go ahead and plug yourself for the three listeners. One of them might be my parents that
Yeah,
don't know
yeah.
who you are. You know, if you want to plug yourself, say what you do, where everybody can find you.
Okay, hi Kyle's parents. So
Oh,
hey everybody. So I'm Ian from the YouTube channel ComedIanMTG. I have been a CEDH grinder for the better part of half a decade now. I've been close to 6+ years. I have been one of the top players for the past almost 3 to 4 years straight. I have more wins with diverse different decks than any other player. Period. And if you're interested in getting coaching on whether it's a fringe unique strategy or a politicking game or anything like that, feel free to hit me up at comedianmtg@gmail.com, or you can find me at any of the socials. All of them are just comedianmtg. Don't try and hit me up directly on Discord. There's a whole thing with that, but yeah, find me at any of those other places. You'll find me easier that way. So comedianmtg on all the socials or comedianmtg@gmail.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ian. We loved
Thank you
it.
so
I
much for
hope you
having me.
enjoyed being on the podcast and
Thank
talking
you
about a
so
card
much.
for like an hour.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and if I can take a second to shout out both of you, I genuinely have enjoyed meeting and interacting with you guys so much in person at events, and I've been looking for an
Thank you.
opportunity to come on for a while. So
Thank you
I'm
so
very,
much.
very happy to be here.
Yeah, that means a lot. That
That
means a
means a
lot
lot.
for sure. All right. Well, listeners, thank you so much for sticking around to the end of this episode. Please check out links to our Patreon down below if you want access to our Discord and all the fun extra stuff that comes with it. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next Monday. Bye.
Bye bye.